Hey guys, welcome to Fundamentals of Design, a TUTS Plus premium course. I'm Adi Purdila and today's lesson is hue, saturation, and brightness. And we'll talk about each one of these, what they mean and what they do. We'll be using Photoshop most of the time, playing around them, seeing how we can use them to create various colors. Finally, you'll get an assignment to help you understand these notions a bit better. So let's jump to Photoshop and see what it's all about. Alright, so let's open up Photoshop and we have the color wheel that you saw in the previous examples. Now, hue. Hue is basically a fancy word for color. If you remember from the previous lesson, by combining the three primary colors, we can get millions of color variations, and these are called hues. Now, you can get more colors out of a single hue by using saturation and brightness. So, basically, every color on this color wheel here is a hue, right? So, let's hide this for a second. And I'm gonna create an ellipse like this. Alright, so let's talk about saturation for a moment. Saturation refers to how vibrant a color is compared to its maximum potential. For instance, pure colors have a very high saturation value, meaning they're more vivid, just like this red over here. If we open up the color picker, let's have a look at some color information. So we have the HSB, hue, saturation, and brightness. H is 0, 100% for both saturation and brightness. If you remember from the previous lesson, that's pure red. And that's confirmed by 255.00 for RGB. And again, the hex code FF0000. So this is a pure color. It's a pure hue. It has 100% saturation and brightness. But what happens if we lower that saturation? So let me duplicate this and tamper with the saturation value. So instead of 100%, let's put in 50%. See what happens? Now the color is not so vibrant, and that's because it's mixed with white. And if you take a look here, as you can see, if we move this cursor towards white, we're basically mixing the pure hue, which is this on the top right corner, with more and more white. And that's resulting in a colorless shape right here. So if you look at the saturation value, it's going very low until eventually it reaches 0 for saturation, which goes to white. So that was saturation, and to recap, the more white we mix into a pure color, the less saturated and the more colorless it becomes. Just as you saw here, look at this, pure color versus saturated color or less saturated color. So what about brightness? Well, brightness is kind of the opposite. It refers to a color's lightness instead of how vibrant it is. And again, pure colors have high brightness values. In contrast, dark colors have low brightness values, making them blacker. So let's open up this example, and instead of going to the left towards white, let's go towards black here on the top. So starting from the top pure color, let's go towards black. And if you take a look here at brightness, it goes down, but the saturation remains the same. So if we go down, the pure red is mixed with black, resulting in a very dark red. It's not as vibrant, and it's definitely darker. So go down even further, and we get close to black. And if you look at the RGB scale here, if all we do is take out red, we will eventually get to 0, 0, 0, which is pure black. Okay, so that was brightness. And similar to saturation, you can think about brightness as the amount of black a pure hue is mixed with. Saturation is the amount of white it's mixed with. Brightness is the amount of black. So the more black we mix into it, the less bright the color becomes. Now, in the previous lessons, we mentioned three other concepts: tint, shade, and tone. And these are very close to hue, to saturation and brightness. So let's talk about these for a minute. Tint is the amount of white a pure color has. Shade is the amount of black. Tone is the amount of gray. Very simple. And these notions make our lives easier when talking about colors. For example, instead of saying we need this red that we have here to be less bright, I don't think everyone will understand that. Instead, you can say we need the red to be a darker shade. Now that's something else. So just to show you on the color picker again, to modify, when you refer to tint, you basically refer to the amount of white it has, right? And it's directly affecting the saturation. If you refer to shade, it's the amount of black a color has, and you're referring to brightness. And if you talk about tone, you're talking about the amount of gray a color has. So if you go diagonally, you affect both saturation and brightness. And you're combining the color with both white and black, so with gray. So you get something like this, a very muddy red color. Okay guys, lastly, let me jump to this picture right here of Tuts Premium, and let's do a bit of desaturating exercise. Now desaturating means taking out all the color information basically from a color, so you turn it into black and white. So watch what happens if we go to image, adjustments, layer, new adjustment layer, hue, saturation. So by adding that, let's see what happens if we tamper with the saturation of the entire image. So if we go to the left, as you can see, the image gets kind of colorless as we go all the way down to 100 on the saturation. And once we got to 100, there is no color left in it. It's just black and white. If we go back, color is coming back. And if we go over, we're just going to make the colors more vivid. Now obviously by taking this to the extreme, we can get, well, unpleasant effects. So if you decide to tamper with the main saturation of an image, use it wisely. So going back to 0. Again with the lightness, let's see what happens if we add some black in the picture. It turns darker and darker until eventually it turns to black. On the other hand, add more lightness and it's going to turn gradually to all white. Alright. Now, if you're using a professional editor like Photoshop, it's going to give you the option to change saturation, hue, and lightness values for different color channels. For instance, if you want to change the saturation of the reds, choose reds and modify the saturation from this. Now, you might think that by changing the saturation of reds, you're only gonna change this bit right here. Well, that's not actually true because the red color is present in almost every single color in this composition. So if we take out all reds like this, let's have a look at before and after. And let me just zoom in here so you can see it better. So first of all, we have this bit on the center, and also if you look at the sides, let me just highlight it. See? And the same thing happens to the other. Hold on just a sec if I can find the adjustment panels. There we go. So if you look at the other colors as well, you can see that the red is present, and it's just gonna change once you tamper with the saturation. And the same thing goes for the lightness. If you revert the saturation to 0 and change the lightness of the reds, they're just gonna get darker. So something like this until you get close to black. Again, bring it up and it's just gonna be, I don't know, combined with white, so you won't be able to see much. But yeah, that was it for the hue, saturation, and lightness. I hope the live exercise was a bit better than keynote slides. So let's jump into our presentation to find out your assignment. Alright guys, so for your assignment, in relation to previous lessons homework where I asked you to identify the color schemes, this time I want you to create your own color scheme by using the ones we talked about, monochromatic, analog, complementary, and so on. So for each one, you will pick the hues and add one or two more colors by using saturation or brightness. For instance, on a monochromatic scheme, pick a single hue and then add 2 or 3 more color variations. Okay guys, this was today's lesson. Next time on Design Fundamentals, you'll learn about font basics. It's a whole new chapter called typography. But until then, thanks for watching. This is Adi Purdila, and from all of us here at Tuts Plus, thank you. I'll see you next time.